Woo, yeah. Trey wasn't prepared for the dancing. When I have a guest, they're always like, what's going on, Jed? The priest yesterday was like, what is going on over there? Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're usually not here on a Thursday, so it's a special day. And we have a special guest who I'm going to intro in a second. I hope you guys all enjoyed that interview with Father, what was his last name again? Lambert. Father Lambert. Oh, that exorcism stuff. We were talking about that at the start. That had me, as Tyler would say, shook when I went home. And my mom didn't disappoint. She had several bullet point comments to make. You the Catholics, you know, you can't stop us. Today we have a very special Shoot the Shit. I'm super excited. We have the host of the world famous now on YouTube, have to say, the Poor Man's Podcast. His channel is blowing up. Yeah. I think you have now it's like 633,000
as of today. Who's counting?
Subs.
Yeah, who's keeping count? 633, 495. Right. You know,
that's really hard to do. And you know what we were talking about, which is really interesting, is your name's Trey. Yeah. You came recommended to me. I watched a bunch of your videos. I was like, this guy's going to be a great conversationalist. I got to have him on. And then I went to do search for you. I'm like, okay, he's got 600,000 plus subs. There's going to be a bio on him. You going incognito out there.
Yeah,
I was like, where is what? I couldn't find anything. It took me a minute to find your name. Yeah. And I was like, okay, his name is Trey. It was really hard. Is that on purpose?
No, I actually don't care if people know my name. It's actually my Instagram. On my Instagram, my main channel is attached to my Poor Man's Podcast channel. So it's not really hidden. It's just I don't talk about it a lot because I'm focusing on what I'm doing in the videos.
Yeah.
I don't really bring up my name just randomly. Like, even I don't do introductions, so I don't go, hey, Poor Man, Travion from the Poor Man. I just don't do it because it's...
What I love about your channel, though, is that there's a simplicity to it. You do a lot of reactions to videos, you do a lot of like dating and relationship commentary. I saw a lot of cultural commentary, a little bit of politics, stuff that bleeds into politics a little bit. But it's very simple. It's just you. There's no fancy set. There's nothing like that going on. How did you blow your channel up like that to over 600,000 subs like that?
Well, I just pay attention to the numbers. I pay attention to the topics that people want to hear, and then I execute based on that. Like, I don't want to give people, I want to do what I want to do, but I also know that it is a business at the end of the day. So, I go by my numbers. I just follow the numbers, and they take me where I need to go.
What were you doing before this?
I played professional rugby before this. So I went straight from college to not playing rugby at all for my entire life. And in 3 months, I made the USA national team. Traveled the world with them, got to go to about 12 different countries. And then right when I signed my professional contract, I got a back injury. Literally at the very same tournament that I proposed to my now wife at. So I got injured during the tournament. We still won the tournament, and I proposed, and I won in that kind of way too. But I got injured, so I was done with rugby because you get paid in gum. You don't make a lot of money in rugby. So like for the people that are complaining about the WNBA, I'm like, hey, we work just as hard as anybody else, and we don't get paid either. It's just because we don't get views. So we got paid in gum, and I was just like, I'm in a situation now where I have a fiance. I can't be just traveling the world and being away as much as I would like to. So I'm going to focus in on her. And from there, I started to work for USPS.
Okay.
And I did that for a little bit. Even though I was injured, it was a herniated disc in my back.
Oh, that's no joke.
Yeah, so I was out for 18 months. And when I'm working for USPS, I'm walking 6 hours a day.
Right.
So I'm like, I gotta figure something out. So on the side, literally anytime after work, over the weekend, any free time I had, I was focusing on the podcast. And the name kind of Poor Man Podcast came from the fact that when I started it, I did it with the bare minimum of investment, kind of. So like, I went and bought like a $400 laptop. I would literally use my phone as the webcam. So like there's an app that you can use called DroidCam, where you hook up your phone through the USB, and you can use it as a webcam. So I pretty much did anything I could do to make this happen, and that's why I kind of got the name Poor Man's Podcast. So
see, that's what I think the appeal is, because I think people are so tired. You know, I come from cable news. I hosted these TV shows, The View, Fox News, and it all seems so staged to people. that people are just looking for someone real.
Yeah.
They're just looking for someone who's sitting there calling it like they see it. They can trust that it's not filtered. So I think that less is more. And the fact that you were just sitting there, and also Poor Man's Podcast is really appealing to me. I didn't grow up with money. You know, I always joke I grew up behind the Staten Island dump. My parents had to work really, really hard for everything. So I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. So that's appealing to a lot of people out there. They look at you and they say, well, he started with the bare minimum. I could do it too. I could sit with my phone. I can, make my voice heard. So that's a very empowering thing that you've done for a lot of people. Yeah. You mentioned that you're married now. Do you have any kids?
No, not yet.
Okay. Not yet. You want kids?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. This is important because we're going to talk about dating and relationships. We're going to talk about the manosphere. We're going to dig in on a little bit on Andrew Tate. So it's important to know, I'm married and I have a 2.5-year-old son who is I'm like a boy mom to the end. So I love him to pieces. So let's start. I have a bunch of topics I want to hit with you today. And I know you won't hold back, which is good.
No, that's
good.
Talk about the truth, yeah.
There we go. So I want to start with Andrew Tate. I know you talked a little bit about on your channel about the ban. I have been very vocal that I've disagreed with him on a number of things in terms of the clips that I've seen that have been cut and that are out there online. And I'll take some issue with what he said here. And they're not all the time. Sometimes I agree with something he said, but a lot of times I find myself disagreeing. But I've been very vocal that I don't believe that he should be banned. And that the recipe for a functioning society is more conversation, not less. Yeah. So what do you think, though, was their real motivation for banning him? Because it's not going to stop his comment from being disseminated.
It's going to get worse.
Right. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I don't know why they did it. I can't say why exactly, but I just think it's weird. It's a little strange how a lot of male kind of content creators or men who are advocates for men's rights, when they post on platforms like TikTok or Instagram, they're often flagged. Like there's a girl named Just Pearly Things that had a million follower account on TikTok, just got banned randomly. She doesn't ever incite Yeah, she doesn't incite for violence. She doesn't do anything wrong except for point out biological and statistical facts. But she was banned on TikTok. While people can just be openly misandrist on TikTok, say, and literally call for violence against men, and nobody bats an eye. So I don't know why exactly he got banned, but I just think it's a coincidence how anybody who talks about male problems and talk about things from a realistic, statistical, and biological standpoint tends to get banned. And I think the same thing happened with Andrew Tate. He was getting too powerful.
You can't talk about biology in 2022 without it being a problem. Yeah, you can't talk about facts. You can't talk about everyone who's grounded in some degree of fact now is getting shamed for it or getting taken down for it. So I didn't know that about Just Pearly Things. I know her YouTube channel. I've watched some of her content, but I didn't know that about TikTok. That's fascinating, really, really interesting.
Yeah, so it's just... There are literal calls for violence. On The View, there are women talking about cutting a man's penis off and throwing it in the dish or the garbage disposal. Everybody's laughing. Nobody bats an eye. On Wendy Williams, one of the biggest shows in America, she openly told a married woman that she should steal her husband's semen to impregnate herself to trap him or something. No, they weren't married. They were dating. And they were engaged, and she said she should steal her husband's semen in order to entrap him. Nobody bats an eye. But Andrew Tate goes on and says some of the things that he says, and he's banned. So I just think it's a coincidence. It's just one of those things.
So what do you think the effect is? Because I think that's true. I think there's a double standard about who is allowed to have a voice and who this. And when I say people in power, it depends on who that is. It's media companies. It's some bureaucrats, some politicians. Sometimes big pharma gets involved, depending upon what you're talking about. But the effect of it is usually that the person who's been banned gets a bigger presence because all of those people they've inspired or all those people that have been drawn to them now feel like they're under attack and say, okay, we've got to band together and we're going to just get his content out more and more because they can't ban everybody.
Yeah, that's the
So
thing.
is that what you think is going to happen with Tate?
Yeah, I think he's going to become more powerful. He's going to have to use a different strategy, but it's going to draw more kids to him. And the thing is, what people don't understand is the best part about open communication is it allows you to go against dogma. It allows, if somebody says something stupid, I can make a counterpoint to prove that that person's stupid. Most people can see that that's stupid and they're going to judge based on what they believe is right. When you silence people, you give them more, like you said, you give them more power. And not only that, when you try to make certain conversations taboo, only people of both sides of the extremes are going to have that conversation now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're in a situation where people who used to have power, a lot of power in the past, we got this new thing called the internet, and now they're trying to find a way to keep that same power, and it ain't going to happen because it's just it makes access easier. Yeah. So, and I think the reason I could give like maybe a hypothetical reason for why this is happening, and it's because misandry or empowering women in some kind of way is very profitable. Mm-hmm. It's very profitable. Like when you look at feminine, maybe you want to go down some other topics. I don't want to.
No, I want you to talk. I want it to be free flowing.
Feel sometimes free. I get going. I actually start.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, when you talk about like feminism and why certain companies and brands may be promoting it the most, is because there's money in it. Mm-hmm. Women buy things. Mm-hmm. Women, 65% of all consumer debt is owned by women. When you look at who benefits from telling women that they should abandon family to go into the workforce, and that is more empowering to fold pants of the banana republic, who benefits from that? Companies. Now you have two times the people in the workforce, therefore the cost of labor goes down, and you can tax more people. You get more money from taxes. So like, who benefits from women being at work all day and now they can't cook because they have no time? McDonald's, because now we all have to go out to eat. People are getting fatter. So like when you look at who might be responsible for some of these things, you have to look at who's benefiting from it. And there's a huge benefit and incentive, financial incentive, especially for platforms like Instagram, who openly sell stuff to mostly women. And there have been studies about this that show that women are 2 times more likely to buy from social media advertisements. Mm-hmm. So they have an incentive, a financial incentive to cater to women, to a certain audience. So I think that's...
And the audience knows that. I'm always saying follow the money on stuff. So this is no different. We talk about, when it came to Big Pharma and how Big Pharma really owns a lot of these media companies. And as a result, the language that came out, and you had people being labeled misinformation when they were talking about the vaccine and all that. So
absolutely,
it's really no different.
There was a situation, and people should really look into this. This is not a conspiracy, by the way. There was a situation.
Here we go. Here we go.
There was a situation where the Rothschilds. Was it the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers that were responsible for prohibition? I think it was the Rockefeller, the oligarch. Was that the Rothschilds?
Rockefeller.
That was Rockefeller. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Rockefeller, he like, people have to realize that companies have always been manipulating pop culture for the sake of long-term financial gain. That's always been a thing. Yep. Like in the past, like I'm saying with the Rockefellers, Rockefeller was an oligarch, and he was to go against alcohol and ethanol because that was seen as a better way to fuel cars. Even Henry Ford said that himself. Said that alcohol and ethanol was a better way to fuel cars. Rockefeller, he funded pro-prohibition marketing, yeah. So like places like the Anti-Saloon League, which was one of his best friends, he would fund them so that they would get rid of alcohol. And what happened was, over time, they got rid of alcohol, and they said, well, what about the alcohol to fuel cars? They said you can keep alcohol available, but you have to put petroleum in it to make it so that people don't drink it. So they funded propaganda in order to confuse people to fuel a certain popular opinion. And the same thing is happening when it comes to women and women going into the workforce. It's the same kind of incentive.
So let me ask you this. Not specifically about Tate, but about the male community that's drawn to him. What do you think it is about him and about what he's saying that men who do like him, who do support what he said, have flocked to him for? Why? What is appealing about what he's saying, or what is going on in society that's making men feel like he is speaking to them?
Because men, and specifically men, are being isolated. Anytime men come together for the cause of something, men are essentially being isolated. And he is a breath of fresh air because he's having a conversation that's based in facts and reality that men genuinely, or that we tend to have amongst each other. That's the only thing. Like, Andrew Tate is just telling people what they feel and why they feel it. That's why he's so popular, because nobody's willing to have this conversation with young men. Yeah. No, they're telling young men that they want them to communicate more, but then anybody that communicates on the behalf of men or talks about male issues from a genuine male perspective gets banned. Mm-hmm. So, I just think that they resonate with him because he's a man. Give me one place in the media where men can talk about our problems, where we aren't labeled misogynists. There is no place. You got like all the channels on television are all for women, except for sports channels.
Sports channels and maybe some of the news, maybe some of the news,
yeah.
So what concerns me about what I see going on in the dating arena, it looks like a mess to me. A complete mess on both sides when it comes to men, when it comes to women. And I feel like men, one of the reasons I feel that Tate was appealing to a lot of men is because I feel there's a segment of the male population, and a big one, that feels they've been wronged, that are tired of being labeled, toxic masculinity, that are tired of, the man-hating community that's coming from modern feminism oftentimes. We don't need men. Men are useless. We can just go get, some sperm at the sperm bank. All of that language got really tiresome. They're tired of being told to kind of sit down and shut up in school. Now, like, to be a guy and to be assertive is somehow a bad thing. So I feel like they're tired of all of this stuff. The problem is that then what I see happening in the manosphere sometimes is rising up some language that's not good toward women. Like, then you have a reaction to bad women behavior, women behaving badly with men behaving badly. And you have things being said like, oh, women shouldn't have the right to vote, and I need to have authority over you, and I'm the boss of the house, and partnerships are bad. So it's just now, to me, looking like just ugly on all parts. So where is the middle ground here?
Because there's context that goes with it. So when you say that women shouldn't have the right to vote, that's not something that I believe personally. But if you claim to be about equality, women should have the right to vote, but they should also have to register for the draft if you claim to be about equality. I personally am a traditionalist. I believe that men should open doors, pay for dates, pay for dinners, pay for bills. I believe that that's how it should be. But if you want to go into this realm of equality, you have to be consistent. And the problem is, men aren't against equality. Men are against inconsistent equality. And the only time we talk about inequality is when it benefits women. That's so it
that
seems
came up,
to be that way.
I had Rollo on, Rollo Tomasi. We had a debate. He brought that up about, and I said, well, I would be inclined to say then, let's not make anyone have to sign up for the draft. That's my inclination, because I don't think it serves us well to have women have to sign up for the draft, because I firmly believe that in combat positions, you should have the best person for the job, and physical strength is, men are just stronger. Yeah. They're just stronger. So that didn't make sense to me, because the military is your first line of defense. So then I would say, let's remove that obligation for everyone. And we've seen a lot of crazy woke stuff going on in the military, so I'm less and less inclined to give them these parameters that they once had protected. But do you see what I'm saying about how it's like bad stuff is going on in the female community when it comes to modern feminism? As a reaction, sometimes you have language and stuff that's not helpful to men rising up in the manosphere. There is some that's just, to me, doesn't sound helpful. Like saying there should be a separate set of standards for cheating for men and women. Not great. That's not going to go over well with a lot of respectable women. They're not going to tolerate that.
It's not going to go over well, but it doesn't mean that it's not true.
Why do you feel that's true, that there should be a separate set of standards for cheating?
I don't think that there should be. No, but I think that there is.
But but that's different. What you're saying is different. You're saying the reality is that in society, maybe it's more accepted for men.
Yeah, but it's more accepted for biological reasons. So like people will claim like society is just against female sexuality, but then they fail to realize the biological reasons for why that may be. And that's why I don't like the feminist argument, especially when it comes to sexual promiscuity for women, because the reason why societies were against sexual promiscuity in every culture all across the entire world, because there are biological concerns when it comes to giving birth. That's been a dangerous thing for forever. That's a natural concern for women. Forever, that's been a dangerous thing. When it comes to STDs, syphilis wiped out hundreds of millions of people throughout history. So when you talk about, when it comes to women being promiscuous, that's a very dangerous thing for culture. Maybe they're not suppressing it because they hate female sexuality. Maybe they're suppressing it because they don't want to die. You know what I'm saying? So like people will just go, female sexuality has always been suppressed, but then fail to realize the natural reasons why it was suppressed. And it's because it comes with a lot of consequence, especially for women. A huge one is paternity. If you're sleeping with everybody in the village, how am I supposed to know this kid is mine? So nobody's going to raise it, and you're probably going to be left a life of selling yourself trying to make ends meet. So there were there were societal pressures for women to not do those things because of the natural consequences of it. So a lot of the societal pressure comes from natural consequences. Now, fast forward to now, we have the birth control pill that takes a lot of that effect away. We have penicillin for diseases like syphilis. We have better treatment for diseases that takes a lot of that away. But we haven't gotten to the point that there's an emotional difference, an emotional attachment that comes with women just sleeping with multiple men. And the studies show that the more promiscuous a woman is before marriage, the less happy she will be in that marriage, and the shorter that marriage will be on average. So when it comes to a man putting essentially gambling with 50% of his current wealth and potential wealth, if I'm a male's rights advocate, I can't talk about shoulds. I have to talk about what is their reality now. And their reality now is women are sexually liberated. That's fine. But that means as a man, if you want to look at things, if you want to go about things the best way to get the best results, taking a risk of marriage, marriage is more risky than ever for men because of that fact.
See, the reality to me, though, is that everyone seems unhappy.
Yeah.
Everyone seems unhappy.
Absolutely.
No one trusts each other. I think that men cheat. I think women cheat. I cover on this show a lot of stuff about women behaving badly, sloppy drunk at the club, sleeping around. I wasn't raised that way. That's not how I live my life. I was taught to respect myself, respect my body. I think that's the way women should behave. But I also feel like that's the way men should behave. I feel like the message out there should be to everyone at this point, like, you have to level up when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
Respect your body, respect yourself, get into a relationship where trust and fidelity matter, understand why that has value. Even if you have a different instinct, maybe you're talking about biologically, maybe men have different instincts when it comes to, I don't know if this is like a spread the seed topic or that's different.
I really didn't even point on the fact of why it's different, like cheating specifically. That was just female promiscuity in general.
Right.
But cheating specifically when it comes to men and women, it is different. It is just different.
Right, but the inclination is different than acting on that inclination and what you do in a relationship, right?
Yes. So like what I say is, I personally believe that men are here to build and maintain societies and compete to spread their seed into the next generation. I think that women's contribution mostly to society is to be selective with who they pick to spread the seed into the next generation. So women have to be more selective. And the truth of the matter is you can't get promiscuous men without promiscuous women.
That's right.
And
100%.
every culture has understood that.
That's right.
So that's why there are social consequences for women being promiscuous. And the reason why you implement social consequences on women, because we see women as weaker. Every punishment for a man is capital. You go to jail, you get killed, you blah, blah, blah. For women, it's social. You say, don't be this or that because people are going to not like you. And because women tend to be social beings, that's a huge punishment for them. Like for a daughter, you don't have to whoop her like you might a son or do whatever, or the punishment doesn't have to be as harsh, because if you just say that you're disappointed in your daughter, especially from a man going to his daughter, that's going to be enough to have her in tears. That's going to be enough for her to understand that what she's doing has consequences. So, it's just different.
I think that's the key, is like men and women are different.
Yes.
I think just acknowledging that, and there's all different areas of society now where we're told we're not allowed to acknowledge that. It's like a bad word to even say man and woman. There's a whole topic now, what is a woman, what is a man, because the whole community has gone so woke. But my observation and just my goal in all this is like, I want men to feel heard. I hate what modern feminism has done in many respects to men. I can't stand it. I have a little boy. Like, I want him to be a strong, confident, empowered guy. I want him to want to provide for his family. I want him to be respectful, but I also want him to know that sleeping with everybody, that's not a badge of honor. I want him to know that getting into a relationship where there's mutual respect and it feels like a partnership is a good thing. So what I'm trying to like get at and like dig under all this, and I tried to get this with Rollo, was like, I know what's happening. Right. I see what's happening, but it can't continue like this. Yeah. It's a train wreck. So what can we do? Like, guys in the manosphere claim we're trying to build men up. Okay. I'm sitting here saying I'm in a sense trying to build women up because I want this behavior, this ridiculous, sexual promiscuity and abortion is the new wave of female empowerment. Yeah. Bullshit. I'm trying to wake them up. But how do we get people to connect again? if the goal is to procreate and to get a next generation, right now it's not looking so good.
What do you think was the number one contributing factor to things ending up the way it is now? Do you think, would you accredit that to feminism?
Modern feminism for me is very different from the way feminism was intended to be. So I'm somebody that, yes, people who were initially advocating for women's suffrage and who were advocating for women to have equal opportunity in education.
What about
Great.
like abortion?
Well, I'm pro-life.
Yeah.
So, from my perspective, that's a problem in many respects. And I feel like it's been glorified and it's been like, oh, you can just sleep around. And I see all the videos on TikTok now. Everyone's like, oh, if you make it harder for people to get abortion, I'm going to not be able to, sleep around. So guys who want us to sleep around, you should be against this too. And I'm like, wow, this is societal decay.
Yeah, but
what's going on.
That also kind of demonstrates the power that women have over men.
That's right.
And when we talk about the power dynamics between men and women, a lot of people don't understand that women have a lot of power. A lot more power than we would like to give them credit for.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that people will say that a housewife is weak, but my wife gets to sleep until 2 p.m. while I'm up at 6 a.m. making videos. So who's really the boss? You know what I mean? Like, I still get the final say in my relationship, sure, because she trusts my judgment, because my judgment gives results and it shows results and it's gotten us to the place that we are now. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to making the final decision, she'll give me that ability. People will say that means that you're the boss, you're controlling. But like I said, she's sleeping until 2 p.m. if she wants, and I'm up in the morning making videos.
See, I thought you were going to go at it with the angle of, if women oftentimes complain about, men sleep around. You know what? They sleep around with someone, right? So the way that you stop that behavior is that you stop putting out so easily.
Yeah.
And you command respect. And as a result, men will have to change the way they behave.
But that's why I believe that majority of the consequences that we see today are due to feminism. I believe that women weren't playing fair, and then men just said, okay, whatever. You got 30% of men that are not sleeping with anyone, and they're in a situation now where they're like, what? The thing about that, because when I say that, a lot of people assume that that's just a problem for men, not really understanding that that's 30% of men. Like a family is what holds a man to society. A man has no reason to care about anything that goes on in society unless he has a family, because men just tend to be more independent. So if you want a man to care about society, give him a family, give him a reason to get up and be productive, or you won't. And that's what you're seeing with a lot of guys. A lot of guys don't care to be productive because they don't see themselves having a family.
So you're saying that feminism caused that. How? Connect those dots for me.
Well, because feminism it incentivizes women to sleep with the top men. So that's going to skew it so that the only men that are actually getting play are the men that are hyper successful. And you see that, and really it comes from women having an inflated ego. It's an inflated ego, because when you introduce social media and you have a woman that used to have to put on a dress and have a good attitude and be friendly to everybody, getting to get kind of attention, getting attention for just posting a booty picture, the same amount of attention. And then they wake up to 20 messages a day saying you're beautiful and perfect for absolutely doing nothing. You start to believe that you're a 10. And if an average woman starts to believe that she's a 10, she believes that she's better than the average man. And that's what you're seeing a lot of.
Why can't guys just discern then, though? Why can't they just see that for what it is and not give it the attention? Because there's also the angle of like, okay, you got a bunch of, you can see it a mile away. You got the attention seekers out there. All the images are filtered. You don't even know what's going on. Those are often the women, I always say, that you go to bed one night with someone, you wake up the next morning, you're like, who is that? They look completely different. It's like the makeup's off, everything. I saw those videos last night about like women transforming without, the fake eyelashes and the fake hair. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah, you Instagram, makeup,
but why
nails.
Don't men just say to themselves, you know what? I'm not going to give this time. If you want like a real woman, and I use that term, I know I get heat in the manosphere for saying that sometimes, but if you want a real woman, by that meaning someone who has self-respect, someone who's going to respect you, why not just stop giving attention to that and give it to women out there who are playing the game right?
The problem is men are hardwired for sexual opportunity. So when there's a woman that presents herself as easier for sexual opportunity, men are going to indulge regardless of if they want to or not. Like I always say, and women will say, and I agree, that men, like you said, should practice more discipline. But, if you take a woman, women can bench 135 pounds, but it would take a lot more discipline to do it than a man. Men can be sexually disciplined, but it takes a lot more discipline to do it than a woman because they're naturally designed to be more selective when it comes to sex. So the problem is you have a lot of women putting themselves out there and then men are taking the bait. So much so that you ain't even got to give out as a woman anymore. There are men forking money away for women in bikini pictures on OnlyFans. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that the problem is the promiscuity, and the promiscuity comes from the sexual revolution and feminism.
And
I
also
genuinely
just
believe that.
potentially also just women delaying that time period of when they ultimately settle down.
Yeah.
So, you know,
but that's
it's
also
like
because
these are
of feminism.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, we agree a lot on modern feminism. I mean, there's a lot that it's done that's been bad for men. I'm just trying to prevent...
And families and themselves.
I'm just trying to prevent what's happening, which is that there's a ricochet now where, and I know you probably know Myron on Fresh and Fit and some of those comments. It's like, I don't want men to go in that direction because I really believe, I love men. I've spent a long time in my career standing up for men. I love, you know, the strength of character that a man can have. I love the physical strength that a man can have. I love a man who can defend himself, who can protect his family. I have been blessed with amazing, incredible men in my life. My dad's a great guy. My husband is a great man. One of my best friends is a guy. These are all wonderful men that I've been blessed to have around me in my life. I don't want to see them go down a route of saying modern feminism has been out to get us, so now we're going to get revenge, because that doesn't help anybody. Because my goal is for the future generation of kids to have two parents who love and respect each other. That's my end game for the future.
The thing is, I don't think that we got to get revenge. I think it's more like we got to self-preserve. So me not marrying you because I know statistically speaking, you've been with 20 men, so you're more likely to divorce me and I'm going to lose 50% of my stuff and be depressed, isn't me taking revenge. That's me self-preserving. Me not wanting to take random women out on expensive dates because there are things called foodie calls where women will openly take advantage of men, call them simps for paying for dates. That's not me getting revenge. That's me just self-preserving.
No, I'm with you on all that.
So I'm trying to find out at what point does the revenge kick in? Like what's
for me, like I'm with you on all that. And I believe that men should be selective. I believe women should be. I believe if both sides were more selective and just weren't willing to tolerate garbage, you would just make that. That's how you make people behave better. Ultimately,
but it like we said earlier, it comes from the women first. They control the sexual marketplace because outside of the R word, women get to decide who procreates. So if every woman on the planet says we're only gonna sleep with men who are married, which is how it used to be, or we are only gonna sleep with men who want to get married, who will marry us, then that's what it would have to be. And that's how it used to be. But now it's not like that because women have been told that marriage is a part of the oppressive patriarchy and they bought it. So
that's 100% true. That won't stop behaviors like cheating or infidelity, though, because people are going to have to dig deep on that. Men and women are going to have to dig deep and make a decision about what they want for their relationship and whether or not they value that. And I think when you bring children into the world, it takes on a whole new level when you have fidelity in a relationship. So I think for me, what sounds like revenge sometimes and what sounds negative is not men setting high standards for themselves. They should. They 100% should. But when it winds up looking like a separate set of standards on cheating or a separate set of standards on I can do this, but you can't do this because you're inferior or there's a lot of language in
inferior?
there.
I don't know about inferior.
Oh, I've heard
that.
That
might be because there are
I'm just saying the
different
commentary
biological repercussions for it. Like, are you talking about cheating? Because I guess I still have not addressed the whole cheating argument. Well, why dudes say that it's different, because it is different, is mostly because of paternity. When a woman cheats, she could get pregnant by another man, and that man could end up raising a child that's not his. And when you look at there was a study done where they took DNA sample. Well, they got the DNA. They got the results from every single DNA center in America. And it turned out that 33, and I need for people to understand this, 33% of those tests came back negative. Now, take that with a grain of salt because those are men that had some kind of suspicion when it came to paternity in general. Right. So these are paternity labs in the U.S. 33% came back as negative. And when you look in Jamaica, it's 70%. So that's an absurd amount of men raising kids that they're not the father of. Now, take it with a grain of salt again, because those are men that probably had a reason to be suspicious. But I've seen this stuff happen in real life. So the biological consequences are different for men and women. And I think what they're talking about is a man of a certain status. When men hit
the king.
Yes, yeah, it's the king argument. When men have a certain status.
Yeah, I don't buy that either, though. I mean, listen, you can do whatever you want in your relationship, and say you're in a relationship with a woman and you set those terms and she's comfortable with you not being exclusive to her. That's up to you. Like, I'm not getting involved in that. But if you're in a relationship and you come in and you say, there's a separate set of rules for me because I'm the king, that to me does not set parameters for a healthy dynamic where there's mutual respect in a relationship most of the time, unless that woman is okay with that, in which case it's none of my business.
And see, but like that's kind of part of the disconnect is I agree with you, but that's if I live in a world of what should be,
right?
Not in a world of what is. And the world of what is every single king, conqueror, or amazing guy in human history has always had multiple women. That's just the truth of the matter.
But it's not a monarchy anymore.
No, it's not a monarchy anymore, but we're still human beings. And we still come from that evolution.
But no,
and a lot of women, and there are a lot of women, regardless if you want to believe this or not, that would rather be the king's mistress than the peasant's wife.
And that's different. Like I said, if you want that, if you're all in for that, go for it. You know, like see, that's not.
But I have to say as a disclaimer, I believe that powerful men should stay faithful. But the truth of the matter is that's not how it always is. And I think the conversation came from average women thinking that they wanted to be with millionaires. Average women thinking they wanted to be with the men of certain status. And it kind of comes from like the Kevin Samuels thing where he's talking about high value men and men making over $100,000 or men making exorbitant amount of money. There are women that have been programmed to think that they're going to find a millionaire man that's going to be able to spend all the time with them they want, that's going to just cater to their every need, that's not going to lead their relationship. They want a man to be able to go lead a company, but not lead their own relationship. And then he's going to be completely exclusive to them. Kevin Samuels was just giving the fact that that's not the reality. And I was a professional athlete. I've been around professional track athletes, NFL athletes, professional rugby players. And from my experience, there tends to be an understanding. These guys are gone for weeks at a time. Everybody loves them. Things happen. But he gives all of his resources to the woman that he loves, to the child that he loves, and he comes back and sees them. And as long as he isn't doing it, as long as he's doing it respectively, as in he's not coming home smelling like the girl, he's not bringing home kids, illegitimate kids, he's not bringing, he's not giving, it's not all in the media, so she's not being publicly humiliated. They tend to be okay with that. So if you're an average woman, or if you're a woman in general that wants to be with a man that's making a good amount of money, then expect certain things to come with that type of man. That man ain't going to be the same man that a $40,000-$50,000 a year guy is. It's just not the same guy.
I would just disagree with you a little bit there that it's not all dependent upon income. I've known both, and the media industry is saturated with people who make a shit ton of money, honestly. And I've seen wealthy guys who behave the way you're describing. There's an understanding in the house. It's very clear what's going on there, and everybody seems to be okay with it, and that's fine. It's none of my business. And then I've seen wealthy men who make different decisions because internally they're looking at their family and they're saying, this is what I want for my family. This is what I want for my life. Some may be religious. Some may answer to someone a lot higher than themselves when it comes to those issues of fidelity and whatnot. And I see what you're saying about what is, but what I'm concerned about, first of all, I want to change what is.
Yeah, I
want to change what is. That's number one. So I'm speaking to men, I'm speaking to women, and I don't want that to be the goal. I think what's exhausting to me is instead of people looking like we are and saying, this is what is, let's acknowledge the reality of what we're seeing. Let's do our best to make it better. That's different from someone saying, oh, guys, I'm your inspiration. This is what you should do with your life. You should aim to be the kind of guy who can have, your girl and then a bunch of side pieces. You should aim to be the kind of guy where there's a separate set of rules in your relationship and you can do whatever you want. That's what I'm kind of looking at as a mom who has a son and saying, no, I don't want my son to be listening to that message. Now, maybe he'll listen to it, get exposed to it, and say, no, thank you. But I hope I'm raising him well enough where he will say, that's not for me.
The counter message is men are weak. Men are the problem for everything. And
there's a fine line, though.
So, yeah, but then what message do you think majority of men who are fed up with hearing that message are going to go towards? They're going to go towards the one. But and that's the thing, too. It might be a childish fantasy or a younger man's fantasy because they don't understand that sex is pretty much boring. It's a thing. It's good. Don't get me wrong. It's great. fine. But it's
Let's put
even if you're
let's
doing
make
it,
Tyler. Can we make that the clip?
even if
Sex
you're
is
doing
boring.
it, even if you're doing it with multiple, it becomes sex after a while.
Yeah.
So like they fantasize because, like I said, men are built to be that way. Men are built to want to spread their seed into as many women as possible, or into all over the place. So it might be a childish kind of idea, but it's a better one than men are weak and men are trash and we should kill all men and hate men and men are the problems of everything and men are the patriarchy.
That's wrong too.
Especially when you look at the fact that men are almost the solution to everything. So if you're going to give men credit for the patriarchy, you have to give them credit for the iPhone. And I think that there's a part where we look at only the negatives of what's happened from men and not any of the positives. But the positives mean that we get podcasts and microphones and internet and lights. And I think that there's been a net positive that men have done for the planet, but we don't get that credit. Men have died by the hundreds of millions to protect women and children in war throughout all of human history.
100%.
So to say that men hate women and women have just been dragged along by men throughout all of society or throughout all of human history.
I'm with you
That's
on
crazy.
all that. I'm with you on all this.
Yeah,
I'm really with you. I think it's just a distinction of, and I know a lot of folks in the red pill community and the manosphere, they love you. And I'm glad, because I think that your message, first of all, you are married. We spoke, you said, you do want kids. And I think that your message and creating a distinction between what is, which may not be ideal, and wanting things to be better for everyone is an important message that not everybody is saying. I want to ask you, though, you talked a lot about how women and men aren't the same. We couldn't agree more there. There is a trend now of ignoring that. And the reason that people ignore it is because it's not woke. It's not woke to say that men and women are different. And you now have, the military, you have the police, and you have the firefighters. Yeah. You have all that wokeness kind of just saturating those spaces. Where do you stand on things like women in combat, in active combat, women as police officers, women as firefighters? What's your take on all that?
I think it's silly for the most part. I don't think that those dangerous jobs, I think that if we really want to be equal, like everybody says, then we should pick the best people for the position, and the best people are universally going to be men. Unless, again, like you want to do something like the military where you alter the standards for women to get in, you lower the standards for women to get in. And in that case, that's not equality. So if you want equality, true equality, all the police jobs would be men, firefighters, all men, military, all men, 10 out of 10. And any kind of, if you put women into the military, that's going to weaken the military. And I don't think people understand that. And it's maybe because we're in a situation where there's been more peace than ever before for a very long period for America as a whole, that we just start to think that the world is this utopia where everybody's all nice and kind and China ain't committing genocide. And I don't want to go too far, but basically what I'm saying is people got
lazy.
Yeah, people get lazy. People start to think things that are true are not true, and that's just what this is. Like, you can't have women in combat in the military. And I feel weird for even saying that, because what are we doing?
So I'm of the opinion, to me, there needs to be one standard. For example, you need to set that standard. Let's talk about the police department, for example. Firemen, there needs to be one standard. These are the qualifications to become a firefighter. You need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. I know the firefighter test is insane. You got to walk up, I don't know how many flights of stairs carrying, I don't know how much weight. If there is a woman out there who can do that, who performs and who completes that and passes the test, great, meets the qualifications, I'm all for her being a fireman, firefighter, firewoman, whatever you want to call it. I'm not into these politically correct terms, firefighter, whatever. If women can't do it, they can't do it. You don't lower the standards, because these are industries where it becomes dangerous, right? You got a fire and someone's at the top of a 5th floor walk up. You're not like, oh, let me, have gender diversity that day. No, you want the person who's going to get you out of that damn building.
And a lot of people is being disingenuous when it comes to this conversation, and they don't understand that it's a man's innate need, or it's just in our nature to protect women. So if we get in a situation where there's a fire and I see that there's a male firefighter next to me, I'm going to trust him to make the decision. I'm not going to worry about him. We're both going to go in and do our job. If I know that she's a female, I'm more concerned for her safety than I would be a man. So I'm going to compromise my original mission in order to protect her. Same thing for the military. Women, just statistically speaking, women are more likely to have injuries. Women are smaller. Women are shorter. Women are weaker on average. So if we're going into a situation where we need to put our best foot forward, when it comes to combat and when it comes to strenuous physical tasks, I don't think that women would be in that conversation, genuinely speaking.
You mentioned something about the instinct of a man to protect women. Have you ever seen those videos? And I'm going to speak to New York City. I come from New York City. Have you ever seen those videos that pop up from the subway where you'll see a woman being harassed on the subway by I don't know who, and there's a bunch of guys just sitting there watching and they don't do anything about it? Yeah. What do you think is causing that trend, particularly in cities like New York City and Los Angeles among men?
I think this whole teaching boys that they're equal to women and women that they're equal to boys doesn't help. I think that men, by and large, and this if any man hears this and isn't just upset, I don't know what you are then, because men are just weaker than we were before. Statistically speaking, when it comes to sperm count is down in men 60%. When it comes to testosterone, me as a 27-year-old man, I'm going to have 36% less testosterone than a man in 1980. What is it? 1989.
Why?
So men have been. Because they're putting plastic in the ranch. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like like we're eating fast food.
He's not wrong.
We're overly stressed. This is true. So for guys, as a man, that's contributed. Like when you talk about testosterone, that means how you are mentally. That affects how you are hormonally. Obviously, it just affects how you perform as a man. It affects your mental clarity. It affects your drive to protect and provide for women. And so men are becoming weaker, and nobody's talking about this stuff. The only place you can hear this information are channels like in the manosphere. Mm-hmm. So when you want to hear stuff like this and say, okay, guys, that means you got to get in the gym. You can't be filled with estrogen. You got to stop eating the fast food because they're putting ranch in the chicken nuggets, or they're putting plastic in the chicken nuggets. You know what I'm saying? So
He's not
you
wrong.
got to start having these conversations with young guys so that they understand the steps that they can take to become better. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about women getting harassed and hit and beaten and whatever on the transit and nobody's doing anything, those are guys that are less men than men were previously, and teaching men and women that they're both the same and that women can defend themselves just like men doesn't help.
I want to ask you about gender. This is controversy coming at you, but there's been a lot of woke propaganda. We've covered it on this show when it comes to gender identity and how they're targeting children now in this conversation. We've covered, the drag queens at schools doing story time and the drag shows for kids. You now have an increasing number of hospitals that are doing gender reassignment surgery on young people and giving puberty blockers and all sorts of drugs and stuff to very small children. Some of these children that are being treated now are 2 and 3 years old, which is wild. And a lot of this stuff is going on without telling parents about it.
Yeah,
so
that's
crazy. What do you think of you? Somebody who wants kids. I think it's deeply sinister what's going on. And I think a lot of it for me is, again, follow the money. Mm-hmm. That if you go back to this big pharma, and the drug companies can make a fortune off all of this, whether it's surgeries, whether it's drugs.
Hormonal, like castration, or like chemical castration.
Yeah, they're going to, these are lifetime customers that they're basically trying to lock in. But where is this headed? Does this spook you out as somebody who wants kids and you're going to send your kids to school and they're going to be, you're not even going to know what's going on, really?
Mm-hmm. No, well, I think that it's, because like with this whole topic when it comes to gender, either it's a fad and it's going to go away quickly because people realize how ridiculous it is. And I don't know if we're going in that direction right now because we have medical professionals saying that there's no difference between a man and a woman. If there's no difference between a man and a woman, why take hormones?
Medical professionals.
Yeah, medical professionals.
I put that in some quotation marks.
It's crazy that these people have gone to school for 12 years. They have job titles that we've never heard of before, like gender assigned, blah, blah, blah.
Well, they're bought and sold. That's why. They're bought and sold.
Exactly. But these are people that are whose opinions are respected because they're supposed to be educated, telling people that there's no difference between men and women, yet they're prescribing hormones. Mm-hmm. That's a huge contradiction. Mm-hmm. They don't even, people aren't even willing to look at the contradictions in these ideals. Like the same people who believe in women's rights will say that there's no such thing as a woman, or they can't even define what a woman is. Mm-hmm. Those are huge contradictions. And I believe that either it's going to be a fad and it's just going to phase out, or this is kind of going left, but we're going to go into some kind of singularity consciousness due to technology. And I think that's the direction that we're going. And I think that if people don't start to wake up and stop being separated by stupid ideas like there's no such difference between men and women, there are people making decisions that are going to decide the direction that human beings will go in forever, that are going to be decided in the next 5 to 10 years. And nobody's even paying attention to artificial intelligence or brain chips or trying to go to Mars, because they're talking about who's able to use the same or who's able to use a bathroom. And I think that's ridiculous.
But you realize this is at the core of everything, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can't say that there's a difference between a man and a woman, you can't have any of the rest of this conversation that you and I even had today.
Yes.
We can't even talk about, okay, well, what makes women happy versus what makes men happy? What are, the biological instincts of men versus women? You can't talk about anything because everything exists in the land of make-believe at that point.
But that's where I start to believe that this kind of mentality is geared towards utopia, because what they're trying to do is take all of the natural aspects of things, say everybody's born on a blank slate, and you're either taught to be a man, you're taught to be a woman, you're taught to be this, and I'm going to say this contradiction, because people will say that you're not born a man or a woman, but you can be gay, you could be born gay, lesbian, or trans. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of a contradiction in and of itself. But basically what they're trying to do is take all of the natural aspects out of humanity and put in innovation to fill in the gaps. And we've kind of done that with birth control. We've done that with disease prevention with penicillin and stuff like that. And we're probably going to start doing that with gender. And that's why I say we're going to go in towards like a singularity consciousness, because it's an attack on nature in and of itself.
Well, it's interesting.
You can't talk about things that are natural for the sake of equality or for the sake of everybody's born on a blank slate. Therefore, anytime somebody's better than another person, it's because they've had an advantage in their life in some kind of way.
So this bleeds out into another topic that I've talked a lot about, which is transgender women in sports now. And you have these transgender women getting involved in sports that were typically reserved for biological women, and they're winning everything.
Yeah.
They're getting all the...
Who would have ever thought?
How surprising.
Who would have ever thought?
They're getting all the trophies. We have an article from Not the Bee. Tyler, can you pull that article up? It's the most recent, and there have been obviously a slew of instances like this, but this is the latest. This is from golf. It's from Not the Bee. It says, another proud moment for women's sports. This trans golfer is shellacking female opponents left and right in the LPGA qualifiers. It says here, the LPGA could soon find itself with a biological male holding a tour card if transgender golfer Haley Davidson can stay hot at the professional women's golf qualifying school tournament. Davidson, who has 3 professional tournament wins, including one that netted $550, finished round 1 and Epson Tour, blah, 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 blah. Let's say that puts Davidson in a great position against 310 biological females who are attempting to advance to compete for these titles. So this makes me really angry because I grew up, first of all, I was athletic, I ran track, and I grew up around women who really were interested in competitive sports. They didn't come from money. This was their chance at success, to get scholarships. It was a big motivator for them. Many of them came from families where they were underprivileged, and this was a big, boost for them. They worked really hard. I know a lot of those women, and now they're being pushed out of the way for men. These are biological men that are now taking these trophies away. So I get real fired up and real passionate about this. Is this going to end? I see this going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. It's going in the complete wrong direction. And anytime it's not going in the wrong direction, or anytime it's going in the right direction, people get upset and it gets reversed. So I just don't understand how, like, that dude, that's a bodybuilder. That dude is that's a unit. That's a big man. And he's going against women. There was another thing where there was a 29-year-old grown man that beat a 13-year-old girl in a skateboarding competition.
And you've seen the swimming. It's sometimes ridiculous. You look at the images and it's like a big guy.
But the problem is the predominant people that are going for this kind of stuff are the same people complaining about women's rights.
Well, it's also women.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
It's women. They need to speak up.
Yeah, I don't want to say just specifically women, because there are male feminists and all that stuff too. So I try to reserve it for like people that go for the ideology. But you have people talking about women's rights, campaigning for biological men to dominate. And that's what you're going to see. You're going to see biological men dominate because that's what it is. I mean, a biological man literally won a Woman of the Year award.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
That ain't sign enough. I mean...
And what you hear silence from all the time is a lot of women, first of all, are afraid to speak out, particularly women who are also competing in these sports, because they're afraid that if they speak out, they'll be labeled as bigoted. They'll lose their opportunities. They'll never get ahead. They'll never get an endorsement deal, all of that. So they don't speak out. And all the feminists are quiet, too, because now the woke causes have taken a priority over women's rights, which they claim to be advocating for X amount of years. And meantime, they really weren't advocating for women's rights at all, because advocating for women's rights doesn't look like yay abortion, yay promiscuity. That's not what it looks like.
Yeah. I think, like, in regards to when you talk about the kids too, and just this whole LGBTQ thing, we're getting into a very weird spot where we're trying to, like I said, build that utopia. This is like 2% of the population. There are more people that have one leg. But when they go into Nike to buy shoes, they still got to buy 2 pairs of shoes. That's because you can't fix everything for everybody. That's not how it goes. So you have people trying to build this utopia. You got them putting kids into schools, allowing for certain individuals to come in, name them whatever they want to name them, call them girls' names, and have private conversations about their sexuality. Like, you don't think, what kind of person is that going to attract? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got kids going to drag shows at day bars.
Yeah.
What kind of person is that going to attract? Who wants to go and perform strip essentially in front of kids? What kind of person is that? What kind of man wants to put on think about the type of person. What kind of man wants to put on a wig and go and dominate women? It's one thing to want to become a woman because you say they're beautiful, you admire their strength, their ability to be nurturing, but to want to put on a wig to just go dominate them at their own sports is a different kind of weird. Like,
it is different.
It's a different kind of sick.
Certainly is. Tyler, do you have that video that we can play this is from your Instagram? It's fantastic. Everyone at home, it's amazing. I want to play the whole thing, and then I want to ask you about it. Let's play it.
So basically, this is our current situation in a nutshell. Women don't want to have kids anymore. They'd rather sip margaritas than sit on the beach. Daughters are getting pimped out by Tinder, OnlyFans, and Instagram. Her and mom are competing for the same male validation. Men are physically and hormonally weaker than ever before. Modern men have the lowest levels of testosterone than any men that came before us. Sons are depressed, overweight, and addicted to porn, probably with a small sense of self-hatred because every time they go to school, feminism tells them that they're the source of all the problems. And that's best case scenario. God forbid they get put on some opioid because they can't sit still for 8 hours a day. Kids are being given anti-anxiety tools like fidget spinners for toys. Teachers care more about gender pronouns than math. Water's polluted, air's polluted, food's polluted. The best drugs used to be uppers because people enjoyed life and wanted more of it. Now they're all downers because people just kind of want to turn it off. Our financial system seems to be crashing. People can't afford health care, and you damn near got to take out a loan just to get a full tank of gas. Our last president was a reality TV star, and our current president seems to be mentally ill. So not only do we have mentally ill people living on the streets and shanking people, but we also have mentally ill people running the country. And while all of this has been happening, Americans have been sedated on food, drugs, and alcohol just enough to not notice. What I'm basically trying to say is the 70-year party is over, and when the dust settles, we're going to realize just how much cleaning up we have to do. A lot of women are going to start to realize that feminism can only exist in times of peace and comfort, and if you're a strong, independent woman making $41,000 a year, you're going to have a tough time. So basically, this is our current...
This is fantastic.
That man knows what he's
First
talking
of all,
Dude,
that
the
was
music
amazing.
in the background.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Just the elevator music. Elevator music.
I love it. And the way you just went topic to topic to
Yeah.
topic. It's not necessarily an optimistic view, but it's a realistic view.
Yeah,
that
look,
is what's happening.
Yeah, that's where we're going. And there's been too much optimism. We haven't started talking about the actual issues and trying to address them genuinely. You know, everything comes with trying to get more votes or trying to make more money. Like with these companies promoting the wokeism, it's just to make more money. These companies have no loyalty to these people. Like, you know, like when it came to Rothschilds in Detroit or whatever it may be, they had an incentive to care about those people because those were the people working in the factories. Right. Now it's all global. These companies, they can't be blamed because it's a company. Just blame it on the next man. And their loyalty is to whoever can make the next dollar. Mm-hmm. So they're going to drain America. They're going to promote all the worst things to drain America of its resources and then go to the next best buyer.
You used a great word in there. You used the word sedation. And yeah. I've talked a lot about how I think these phones have sedated people into kind of a lull. You stare, you're hypnotized by it. You don't make eye contact with people anymore. You don't have conversations like this face to face. People get buried in the phone. They get lost in the phone. They do the online dating. Another topic where I think men in particular have been sedated is the topic of pornography. Mm-hmm. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you feel about pornography and what the impact has been on men of closing themselves off in rooms, not interacting with women, and instead kind of just walking down that dark road over and over again?
Well, and honestly, like I usually back some of my thoughts up by like facts and data. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to pornography, I haven't really seen anything that concretely shows that men become more violent or men become more whatever it may be from pornography.
What about
So I
less
can't really-
likely to be in a relationship or less likely to want to bother with committing to a woman if they're engaging in pornography for 12 hours a day instead?
Well, I don't know how many dudes is doing that much. Beating up. I don't know how many dudes is doing that all day.
In the
but-
chat, let us know. I'd like to know details about how often.
Well, I
No.
will say this. It is definitely addictive, and it is a form of pleasure, and any form of pleasure can destroy your life. And I think that that's part of the problem when we talk about the sedation in general. There are a lot of people that are unhappy, but instead of acknowledging their unhappiness, they're told to chase more happiness. So what that does is they replace happiness for pleasure. Anything you get instant gratification from is not happiness. It's pleasure. It's masked happiness. So people will go to work all day. They're miserable. They don't want to put any effort towards getting a better situation. So they'll sedate themselves with drugs, alcohol, social media, pornography, video game, whatever it may be to just forget about it. Right? So and anything that does that, it destroys your happiness over time because happiness is only found at the top of the hill. You can only get happiness after hard work. And not enough people are willing to put in the work because it's too easy to get instant gratification and pleasure. So when it comes to pornography, anything that has instant gratification, especially that much, I do know that pornography, when it comes to, it's one of the best natural dopamine releasers. So outside of like cocaine and stuff like that's higher up, naturally speaking, sexual pleasure for men and probably women too is the highest amount of dopamine you can get from something naturally. So it has to be, there has to be some problems.
Relationships take work. Like going out and meeting someone and taking them out and getting to know them and doing all those steps before you actually get to the sexual gratification component of that can take a minute if you're doing it like that. It builds character, it builds backbone, it turns you, that's the process whereby I argue that boys become men in life, learning how to navigate all of those things. You instead, become obsessed with pornography, get inside your phone, only do, looking at, I saw an article this morning called Toxic Tinder because it's just swipe right, swipe left. It's like everybody's just,
when you make dating or picking a potential husband or wife as easier than picking a pizza, there's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, you brought up the word happiness, and we talked a lot about throughout this show. And then, Tyler, we're going to get to the chat in just a second, if you don't mind just pulling up some stuff we have there. But you talked about the word happiness and how women and men are different. So what would you say if I asked you what makes women happy? We're speaking generally. Obviously, there's going to be outliers here. But in general, what do you think makes women happy? And what makes men happy? What would you say?
Generally speaking, let's see. What makes women happy? I think what makes women happy, like, do you mean like just in terms of like fulfillment, genuine fulfillment, or just like?
No, genuine fulfillment. If women were going to track a path to happiness, what would that include? Because I think it's very different actually for men and women. Like I would say, for example, I think that women are happier when there's more of a work-life balance.
Yeah.
I think that women are happier when there's more peace in their life. I think women really thrive in moments of calm and moments of peace. We need that.
Yes.
We really, really need that.
Yeah, the only problem is like when you have like, I think women get fulfillment from family, genuinely speaking, and close
holidays,
personal
all of
connections and relationships. I think men get happiness from family as well, but also from striving to be, especially financially, better. So just trying to challenge themselves every single day builds your character as a man. And that's kind of the hero's journey. That's what everybody fetishizes about in every single movie. The guy that starts with nothing has to do everything to get to where he wants to be. So I think that's what makes a man genuinely feel fulfilled, happiness and financial success over time. But that only comes from having success in other things like discipline and being willing to like do something every single day. So
I feel like men need to feel strong, and by strong I mean strong, empowered. And for me and my observations, I really believe that women need to feel at peace, meaning that you're not worried about your guy and what he's doing. You're not, worried about, I have to put in, hate to say it, it'll be controversial, but 18 hours a day at the office.
Yeah,
I
that's
once
what I was
worked in
gonna
an
say. So
office setting, and
how do you feel about women in the workplace then? Because
Yeah.
I believe that when women have to compete directly against men, because men have testosterone, we have a complete advantage, competitive advantage. This is the first time in human history women are competing directly for resources against men. I think that adds a lot of stress that women don't need.
So it's
do you think
not,
about
for
that?
me, it's not only don't need, but I think a lot of them don't want.
Right.
You know,
But
and
when you have that conversation with most women, do you think they're honest about that?
No, I don't. I don't think they're honest about it. And I can say this as somebody who, you know, I have had the high powered jobs, which in media is not easy. You do a lot of free television. You're in buildings a lot. You spend a lot of time working. I taught for years. I don't know how much you know about me, but I taught middle school and high school for years. I taught college, and I was always a worker. But I had limits. Limits. And I remember when I met my husband, who is he's the kind of guy that can go to an office and work for 16 hours, and he's just laser focused, and it doesn't take a toll on him. I remember saying to him, I could never do that. It would sap like my life force out of me.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of women aren't happy. They're not happy doing those things. They want more work-life balance. They want more time for other things. They want to be able to sit outside on the grass with their kids.
Then why are we telling young women that careers are more important than family then?
I think that came from women got very scared at some point. And I think this happened through feminism, where it became scary for them to rely on men. I think that they worried about things like being left, and we're told guys are gonna, you know, they'll spend all their years building themselves up and they'll grow these careers, and then if they leave you, you'll have nothing. I think there was a lot of that
statistically speaking,
messaging.
it's the women that leave. Like 80% of the time, it's the women.
That's
that
not
file
how
for
the
divorce.
messaging got to women, though, and I
Right.
think women
And-
felt very afraid of not being self-reliant.
And that completes the point that I was trying to make about the propaganda and companies influencing pop culture. Did you know that the lady who was the top journalist for Cosmopolitan, I forget her name. People can look it up. The lady who was the top journalist for Cosmopolitan lied when the magazine was at its highest, with its peak in terms of influence with women. She was lying about facts, data, and statistics in order to promote a more Sex in the City lifestyle because it would sell more magazines.
All
And it
those
was
women
very
were miserable.
Exactly.
On Sex in the City, though, anybody who watched that show, and it's interesting because they came out with Reboot. I don't mean to interrupt you. They came out with the Reboot, and everybody realized how sad. Like, I grew up with that show.
Yeah.
So I watched it young, and I was like, oh, it's fun. It's a bunch of 30-somethings running around in the city. I didn't absorb it. I watched it now. I'm a grown-ass woman. I have a kid. I have a family. And I looked and I said, oh, what a bunch of sad women.
And that's why there's so much societal pressure on women, because when you're at the top of the world, you're 18, nobody can tell you nothing. Every woman is going to agree with you, and every man is going to agree with you because they want to sleep with you. So everything you're told is that you're right, you're perfect, you're beautiful. There used to be societal pressure to tell women, hey, you might want to get pregnant before you're 30, because when you turn 30, 90% of your eggs are gone. By the time you turn 40, 97% of all your eggs are gone. When you hit 35, you are in high risk pregnancy. That was what we knew historically speaking. So we had social pressures in order to push women to do those things and to rush to do those things, even if they didn't feel like it, because life isn't about doing what you want to do all the time. Sometimes it's about doing what you have to do, doing what's more responsible.
It also is different. PBD and I had a conversation the other day. Patrick said to me, are you going to have more kids? And I said, no. I said, just one for me. I said, and it would be hard to do all of this, with a child. And he made a comment about, I said, I don't remember how the conversation went after that, but I said something to him like, it's hard to be a CEO. It would be really hard to be a CEO for you if you had morning sickness. And there's just differences that come along. And those are not burdens. I mean, I'm a superhero. I gave birth to a child. I mean, that is my biggest superpower.
That's insane.
People
just discredit that too much.
I always say that.
Women are literally the creators of culture. Like I tell, like when guys go, if you're married, that's like being a prostitute, or that's prostitution because she's technically only there for your resources. That's not what it is. Women contribute a lot. Women are the social centers of America. They organize social communal events. They create culture amongst kids. The man imprints his values on the woman. Since she spends a lot of time with the kids, she imprints the values on the kids. Mm-hmm. And now we're in a situation where women are told to work. The kids are undermined. They're being pinned all this LGBTQ stuff because women have decided to work. The kids are more obese than ever because when they come home, they eat fast food and nobody's happy.
That's right.
So it's but all of that, again, I think comes from the root cause.
People always ask me that one question I always get in interviews is, what's your biggest accomplishment? And I'm like, I created a person. I built a human from start to finish.
Yes.
And that is my biggest. I forget it. Don't talk to me about The View or Fox News, or I made a human being.
Yeah, because when it's all said and done, when you're 80
Right.
80 years old, sitting in your deathbed,
That's right.
no one's going to care. You're not going to be thinking, I wish I did more
Yeah.
work. You're going to be thinking, I spent more time with the people I love, and you're going to be surrounded by generations of people. Like, when, unfortunately, we just had a loss in the family on my
sorry to
wife's
hear
side.
that.
Yeah, but when we were there, I looked at my wife and I told her, just imagine how beautiful this is. She has generations of people around her that came from her specifically. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that we don't talk about how important that role is enough. And I think it's predominantly women that downplay that role. I don't know a single man that has said, that has made fun of a woman for cooking and cleaning and taking care of her family. I don't know a single man that's ever downplayed a woman other than an 18-year-old in a Call of Duty lobby or something. I don't know a single man that does that. So those pressures to be working women and to be more stressed out is coming from other women because they have propaganda in their brains about feminism, and it's just to make money.
Well, women were told for a very long time, it's a man's world. You have to compete in a man's world. And I think that the lesson and the takeaway there was, be more like men instead of look at what you bring to the table that men can't do. You can't create a human. I can,
Right.
So honor and own that and make that, big and bold and be proud of it and front and center. And the messaging instead was, if you want to compete in a man's world, you got to be a man. And I always say, no, I'm really, really comfortable being a woman.
Feminine women rule the world.
Yeah.
And I always say that to people, like I said earlier, hundreds of millions of men have died for feminine women and children. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Let us do that. But there are women that can go into rooms and have everything done for them without lifting a finger because they have a certain aura, and it's the femininity. Like, if you look like you can't get something done for yourself, somebody's just gonna pop up and do it for you.
True. That's very
that's
true.
a superpower.
That's
So,
true.
like,
I'm short and I'm strong. I work out a lot. I'm very into health and wellness. So for me, the gym is my baby, and I go there and I often will shock men. They'll be like, she's so little, but I can lift some weight. Not like you can, but I can lift some weight. It's a running joke because then my husband will go downstairs and suddenly the weight I'm lifting is not all that big. And I love that though.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm
Yeah,
like,
you
I
should.
want
Why
my
would-
man to
yeah.
be, if he can't lift more than me, we got a problem.
That's a big problem.
That's a big
He's supposed
problem.
to be protecting you, right?
Yeah, but I am short, and I always notice when I walk into a room, people are always like, oh, can I get that for you? And I'm like, well, yes, you can. I embrace that moment. I don't care. I don't find that to be a bad thing. I don't need to go run and get a step stool and be like, no, I can do it. No, get there. You can get it down for me. I'm all good. And I have one question we're going to get, let me do one question, last question, then we're going to get to chat. I did a show recently where we broke down male happiness. And one of the statistical things that I found is that marriage is good for men, is that married life really makes men happier, that men who get married have better, sex. They are physically in better shape. They are mentally less likely to be depressed. They're less likely to have a heart attack. If they do come down with something like cancer, they make more money. If they come down with something like cancer, they're more likely to have a positive outcome from treatment. If they are married, that makes sense. You would have a partner. So I presented all of these things as a way to say, not just marry anybody, but know that there's value in choosing the right partner and having that partner. Can you just speak a little bit to men who are watching right now on how you feel about that and what you are married? So what has been the plus side of that for you?
Well, the plus sides is I have more responsibility, therefore I have to make better decisions and I have to be more disciplined, and that's just going to make me a better person and it's going to build character overall. So those are some of the pluses for me now. And like for my wife, I take pride as a man that wants to protect and provide. I believe in traditional values. I take pride. It makes me happy to be able to do things for my wife, my family, and her family. That makes me happy. So, I mean, the marriage in and of itself, just the differences of the culture, my wife's family, I love them. They bring in a whole different attitude than my family. And when we collide, it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. So I just think marriage in and of itself is a great thing. But I do have to put in a disclaimer. You can't make a society so lopsided like we have now and not talk about what's happening in terms of divorce court to men and expect them to continue to want marriage. Mm-hmm. You can't say you're about equality, but then not address the inequalities when it comes to men in divorce court. Every time we're talking about inequalities, we're never talking about men in divorce court. Like everybody wants to talk about equality, but so you're building a system that's set to fail, because I do think that men genuinely want marriage. But if you're in a situation where you can lose half of everything you own or ever will own, you're not really incentivized to make the decision to do it.
I had read a study, and we covered it here, that showed that men, even if they got divorced, were still making, men who had been married, even if they had gotten divorced, were still making more money and inclined to make more money in life than men who had never been married.
I would
imagine
that's
a positive.
Yeah, it's probably because they have kids too. So even if you're out of marriage, you still got to provide.
I think
for
that's an
kids.
important point that you brought up about the finances. I don't know how you would address that reality that exists in terms of men being concerned now that if they get married, someone's going to run away with half. What I would say to that is be really selective. Like, go through that process, well.
I think that's what a lot of dudes are doing, and they're not finding anything. So, if you want to be selective, that means that you have to understand that you might not find anything good for yourself. So you might end up in that situation. So,
I have faith.
Yeah, I know, I do too. I think that, hopefully we can turn the ship around. We'll see what happens.
We've done a little part. We've done our part today.
Yeah,
well,
I think we've done okay. Yeah.
I want to get to the chat. Tyler, do you have anything for us there?
Yeah, we got one quick one.
Yeah.
Let me find the exact quote. Who should make the final decision in the household, being as men are expected to protect and die first for that household?
Men. Easy.
What does that mean, final decision about what? Anything?
When it comes to bigger decisions,
Bigger
like
decisions in the
directing
household.
the family and the future of the family, I can wholeheartedly think that men should have that final decision.
Yeah. And in my house, I'll tell you, it doesn't work like that. How it works is we both come to the table on big decisions. Now, there's certain things that I don't care as much about as he does. There's certain things that he doesn't care that much about, but I do. For example, if we're going to go on a vacation, I'd be picky about the hotel, but probably not as picky about the location. So it's a give and take. Yeah. But every big decision that affects the family unit, we sit down and we really talk it through until we're both comfortable with that decision, and that's how it goes down. It's not a my way or the highway type of situation in my house. I would never want that, and I think there's going to be a lot of women that don't feel comfortable with that dynamic.
Yeah, I think that a lot of women get stuck up on the. I think that if you're a woman and you're married to a man, you should respect his ability to make decisions, and you should trust that he's going to make those decisions with your best interest. And I always like to say, I think that for efficiency purposes, one leader is the best way to go. When I was on the rugby team, I was a wing. So I'm the guy that scores all the tries. And even though I score all the tries, the captain of the team is the captain because he has the most experience. Now, I could be there and I could go, hey, captain, I see this guy. He's a little bit weaker. I think I could run around him. I think I could score. Maybe we should dish the ball out to me. Him being the captain and having more experience, he can say, no, I know that guy. I've played against him. He's just baiting you. He's actually really good. Or he can say, you're right. Let's make that decision. So I believe that women are the neck and men are the head. So women can have a say in what direction we go, but you should trust the man to make the final decision because you trust his decision-making skills because of the results that he's shown.
What if he doesn't have, on that particular issue, the experience, though? What if it's about something where she's lived in a bunch of places, or she grew up in a family where X, Y, and Z happened that gives a lens that's really important, where she may be better fit to make that particular decision? Do you think that could happen?
Yeah, but I think that she can propose the decision, and the man can say based on what he knows if that's a good decision or not. And he should also trust. If you got a good leader, he's also going to trust you too. So the captain of the team, he knows that I score. He knows my capability. He knows that how much I know about the game. So if he thinks that I'm making the right decision, he's going to say, yeah, let's do that. Especially if he knows that he hasn't been, say if he wasn't paying attention to what's been going on or whatever it may be, he might say, yeah, go ahead and do it. Let's do that because that's the best. I think that would be a good decision based on what you've presented to me. But I think that when it comes to the final decision in any kind of big situation, men should make it because men tend to think more on logic instead of emotion.
So that would be the one area I think where you and I disagree a little bit. I do think that women factor in emotion more, that we're both in agreement on. But I'm a firm believer in a partnership. So
no, I like traditional marriage. I like husband and wife.
I want husband-wife too, traditional
we ain't
in that
raising no
sense.
babies and
So for
it's
me,
a thing people do.
I think that there are a lot of women who, and it's interesting because it doesn't rub me wrong that you say that, because I'm also a firm believer that everyone should build the family structure that's comfortable for them. You know, if that works for you in your house, and great, you know, and if it doesn't work in my house, that's okay too. But there is a large segment of the female population that will hear that wrong. They'll want to say, well, I want to say, you know, a marriage is supposed to be a partnership. And if we're making a big decision, for example, as to where to move the family, I want to be with someone who wants me to have a say. So that's one area where we'll disagree, where I feel like that mutual respect in a relationship for me comes from an acknowledgement on both sides that each person's voice matters in those big decisions.
So like, okay. So say like, so you know PBD, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you work under PBD. If you went up to PBD and said you had an idea for something and he said he didn't want to do it because he didn't think it was a good idea, or if he said he did want to do it, you trust him to be able to make that decision, don't you?
Well, he's not technically my boss, actually. He's my partner, but that's a different dynamic. So I would always stray from comparing a marriage to a business arrangement.
Really?
That's something in business where it really depends. I mean, he's been doing this for longer than I have, and I would, in that instance, say, you know what,
Because
I'm going to give him.
trust his ability to make the
I do trust
decision.
him, or I wouldn't be here doing this partnership with him. But a marriage is not a business.
Why do you trust the decision? Do you trust the decision that he's going to make because you think that he knows more about it? Like he has a mind for it?
I think that I would be inclined probably to trust the decision for now, and feel it out and see. And if I still feel strongly and differently in a few months, go back to that table and say, this needs to change. Here's why. Let's give it a go. And we've had actually some of those discussions and had things change. You know, let her try this out. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. You know, but I don't ever compare a marriage to a business. But go ahead.
But
continue.
I'm just saying, like, so then if we both agree that men tend to make decisions logically, while
I didn't say men though. I said, you asked me about PBD.
No, I'm just saying in general. Earlier before we agreed that men tend to think of things logically while women tend to think of things more emotionally. When it comes to life decisions, which person do you think is going to be more likely to make the better decision? I would agree that the logic, because of the sense of the ability to rational more, or to use rationale more, is going to have better results in the long run. That's why I think for most people, that's the best way to do it. I don't think, I mean, maybe for not everybody, I don't know how people want to do their thing. But I think
it depends on the decision.
I think it gets very dangerous when we start to say that you should just wing it and just do what you feel, because a lot of girls are going to feel like they can make that decision because, like I said, when you're younger, you're told that you're right by everybody. But that doesn't mean that you're actually making the better decisions. And if you trust your man to be the leader because he's shown results, and I don't think that you should marry a man unless he's shown that he can be a leader and has shown results. I don't care what he's talking about. And I believe the same thing for my daughter. If you trust that man to make the decisions because you selected him as a husband, you should let him make the final decision. Now, that don't mean you can't propose something. That don't mean you can't even have a 45-55. But when it comes to the final decision, if the man is more likely to make it off rationale and experience, then I think that he should be the one that gets the final decision.
Yeah, that wouldn't work for me. That wouldn't work for me, only because, and I understand what you're saying about logic and emotions and all that, and I tend to agree with you in the sense that I think emotions, like I said, do play a bigger role for women than they do for men. But decisions can be really complicated and aren't always about just, you know, logic versus emotion. Sometimes experience comes into play. Sometimes the life you've lived comes into play. Sometimes maybe you haven't communicated to someone what really is important to you in this decision for whatever reason. So
sometimes emotion even comes into play.
Sometimes emotion even comes into play.
To make a better decision.
So what I just love is a dynamic where, and I think what most women would probably want is a man who feels comfortable saying, I'm really confident, I believe this is the right decision, but also says, how do you feel about it, babe? Like, where are you coming from? Yeah. What do you think? And if there is a strong disagreement about that particular decision, that there has to be a meeting of the minds in some way.
For majority of women, who do you think is more comfortable? Do you think they're more comfortable with men making decisions? Like in terms of even dates, something as simple as dates.
Yes.
Do you think majority of women want men to say, wear this dress, we're going here?
No, not wear this dress. No, but we're going here.
Okay, yeah, we're going here. Meet me there at this time. Be very assertive, right?
Yes, I do.
So wouldn't you be kind of undermining that thing that women tend to desire from men when you say that you don't want him to make the final decision? I think that most women, by and large, are happy with the man making those decisions if they can trust that he's making them with her best interest in mind, and he's shown results.
So let me make that one modification, and then we're going to have to wrap because I just got an alert. I think there's a podcast in here after us today, but I could talk to you all day. But I think I think that what most women want is a man, again, who's comfortable making that decision and who is assertive and will, for example, pick a restaurant and say, hey, babe, I think we're going to go here tonight. This would be really, really great. But if she turns around and says, oh, I really want Chinese tonight. Okay, you know what? Who has that flexibility, and a man who wants her to have a seat at the table on those discussions.
Yeah.
A man who cares enough about her to care about what her vision is and what she sees and what she feels. So ultimately, they may wind up saying, you know what, babe, it's up to you. But they want to feel heard in those discussions and feel that their input is valuable to that man.
I think but that is the case, though.
Not always.
Not always, but...
And not always in those dynamics that you're describing.
Yeah.
Maybe in your case, for sure.
Not always, but
Yeah.
I think that, and that's, again, why I say you should choose a leader that you think has your best interest in mind and yada, yada,
A partner.
yada. Yeah.
Choose a partner.
Yeah, well, I believe in husband and wife. I don't really believe in the partner thing.
So that's great. I wish we had gotten to that sooner because...
But do we have more questions or...
No,
'Cause
I
don't
think
wanna
we're going to
skip.
wrap for today.
Okay.
I appreciate you being here. We have a podcast coming up after this, or I could talk to you all day. Maybe we'll have you back and we'll break down some more topics. But thank you so much. The Poor Man's Podcast. This guy could talk forever, just like me. He's got the gift of the gab like me. Thank you so much. It was fantastic. I think we scratched the surface. And round 2, next time you come, I think we'll get to the next layer. So this was a good start. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And we'll be back here on Monday. I don't know. I'm going to bring some craziness to the table. Who knows what? Maybe it'll just be me for the full hour. Lucky you. All right. We'll see you then, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.